Claire Bennett wiped down the marble counter of her small cafe, watching the early morning light filter through the windows. The smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls filled the air, creating the warm atmosphere she had worked 3 years to build. Her cafe, Morning Bloom, sat tucked between two larger businesses on Madison Avenue, barely noticeable to most people rushing past. She had poured every penny of her savings into this place, along with money borrowed from her grandmother. Now, at 28, she was finally starting to see the dream become reality. The bell above the door chimed. Claire looked up with her practiced smile. A man entered, tall and impeccably dressed in a navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his presence commanded attention even in her tiny cafe. He had striking green eyes that swept the room with careful observation before landing on her. "Good morning," Claire said warmly. "What can I get for you today?" "Black coffee," the man replied, his voice deep and measured. "And whatever pastry you recommend?" Claire nodded, preparing his order with practiced efficiency. She noticed how he studied the artwork on her walls, local pieces she had commissioned from struggling artists. His expression remained neutral, but she caught something like approval in his eyes. "The almond croissant is exceptional today," she offered, plating one carefully. "My baker outdid herself this morning." "Then I trust your judgment," he said, pulling out his wallet. Their fingers brushed briefly during the exchange, and Claire felt an unexpected spark of electricity. She pulled back quickly, professional smile firmly in place. The man settled at a corner table with his laptop, and Claire returned to her morning routine. Several regular customers filtered in, each greeted by name. She loved this part of her day, the familiar faces and comfortable conversations that made her cafe feel like a community rather than just a business. When the past returns an hour later, the bell chimed again, and Claire's smile froze on her face. Derek Morrison stood in the doorway, his blonde hair disheveled, and his eyes carrying that familiar, dangerous glint. Her ex-boyfriend looked exactly as he had 6 months ago when she had finally found the courage to leave him. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the counter. "Claire," Derek said, his voice falsely pleasant. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," Claire replied, keeping her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "Please leave." "That's not very friendly," Derek moved closer, ignoring the other customers who were starting to notice the tension. "After everything we had together, you owe me a conversation." "I owe you nothing," Claire said firmly. "I asked you to leave." Derek's expression darkened, and he reached across the counter to grab her wrist. His grip was painfully tight, exactly as she remembered. "You embarrassed me, Claire. Walking out like I was nothing. Do you know what people said about me?" Before Claire could respond, a hand clamped down on Derek's shoulder. The man in the navy suit had moved with surprising speed, his expression cold and authoritative. "She asked you to leave," the stranger said, his voice dangerously calm. "I suggest you do so immediately." Derek released Claire's wrist and spun around, sizing up the other man. "This is between me and my girlfriend. Stay out of it." "I am not your girlfriend," Claire said, rubbing her wrist. "I have not been your girlfriend for 6 months, Derek." A stranger's protection. The man in the suit stepped between Claire and Derek, his posture relaxed but ready. "The lady has made herself clear. You have 3 seconds to walk out of here voluntarily, or I will call the police and have you removed." "Who do you think you are?" Derek sneered, but there was uncertainty in his eyes now. "Someone with considerably more resources and patience than you appear to possess," the stranger replied. "1. Derek looked between them, his jaw clenched. "This is not over, Claire." 2. Derek backed toward the door, his face flushed with anger. "You always did need someone to fight your battles." The stranger pulled out his phone. 3. Derek slammed out of the cafe, and the tension in the room slowly dissipated. Claire's other customers began murmuring among themselves, and she felt her cheeks burning with humiliation. She had worked so hard to build this place, to create something safe and beautiful, and Derek had invaded it with his toxicity. "Thank you," Claire said quietly, turning to her unexpected defender. "You did not have to do that." The man studied her with those intense green eyes, and she saw genuine concern there. "Are you all right?" "He hurt you." Claire looked down at her wrist, where red marks were already forming. "It's nothing I have not dealt with before." It does not make it acceptable, he said firmly. He extended his hand. Vincent Harrington. Claire's eyes widened slightly. She had heard that name before, seen it in business articles. Vincent Harrington owned a chain of luxury hotels across the East Coast, each one more successful than the last. He was known for his business acumen and his charitable work, though he rarely gave interviews. Claire Bennett, she replied, shaking his hand. This is my cafe. Unexpected connection. Vincent glanced around with renewed interest. You own this place? It's impressive. The atmosphere, the attention to detail. This is more than just a coffee shop. Thank you, Claire said, surprised by the genuine admiration in his voice. It has been a labor of love. Will he come back? Vincent asked, his expression serious again. Claire wanted to lie, to pretend everything would be fine. But something about Vincent's directness demanded honesty. Probably. Derek does not handle rejection well. Vincent pulled a business card from his wallet and wrote something on the back. This is my personal number. If he bothers you again, call me immediately. And consider getting a restraining order. I cannot ask you to do that, Claire protested. You have already done more than enough. You're not asking. I am offering, Vincent said. No one deserves to be treated the way he treated you. Claire took the card, feeling the weight of his sincerity. Why are you helping me? You do not even know me. Vincent was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. My mother spent years in a relationship with someone who treated her badly. I was too young to help her then. Perhaps this is my chance to do better. The vulnerability in his admission caught Claire off guard. This was not the cold businessman she had expected. This was someone who understood pain and wanted to prevent it. Thank you, Vincent, she said softly. Truly. He finished his coffee and gathered his things. The croissant was exceptional, by the way. You were right to recommend it. As he moved toward the door, Claire found herself speaking without thinking. Would you like to come back tomorrow? Same time? The blueberry scones are even better. Vincent turned, and for the first time, she saw him smile. It transformed his entire face, warming those serious green eyes. I would like that very much. After he left, Claire stood behind her counter, her heart beating faster than it should. She told herself it was just gratitude, just relief at having someone defend her against Derek. But deep down, she knew it was something more. Vincent Harrington had walked into her cafe as a stranger and left as someone she wanted to know better. She had no idea that this chance encounter would change both their lives forever, leading them down a path neither could have anticipated. Sometimes the universe brings people together at exactly the right moment, when they need each other most. For Claire and Vincent, that moment had arrived with the morning sun and the smell of fresh coffee, setting in motion a story that would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, courage, and belonging. Vincent became a regular fixture at Morning Bloom over the following weeks. He arrived each morning at 7:30, ordered black coffee and whatever pastry Claire recommended, and settled into his corner table with his laptop. Claire found herself looking forward to his visits, preparing his order before he arrived, learning how he took his coffee and which treats he preferred. Their conversations started small. Weather observations, comments about the news, recommendations for books or restaurants, but gradually they deepened. Vincent told her about the pressure of running a family business, about his father's expectations, and the loneliness of always being viewed as a bank account rather than a person. Claire shared her struggles with the cafe, her dreams of expanding, her fears about failure. You should see yourself when you talk about this place, Vincent said one morning, gesturing around the cafe. Your whole face lights up. That passion is rare. Claire felt heat rise to her cheeks. It probably seems small to someone like you. Your hotels are in 5 states. Size does not determine value, Vincent replied seriously. You have created something meaningful here, a place where people feel welcome and safe. That matters more than square footage or profit margins. His words stayed with Claire long after he left. She had spent so much time comparing herself to others, feeling inadequate because her success was modest. Vincent helped her see her accomplishments differently. Shadows of the past. Derek had stayed away for 3 weeks, but Claire knew better than to believe he had given up. The restraining order she had filed, encouraged by Vincent, had been served. But paper did not stop someone truly determined. One evening, as Claire locked up the cafe, she spotted Derek across the street. He was not approaching, just watching. The sight made her skin crawl. She quickly pulled out her phone and texted Vincent, hating herself for needing help but knowing she would be foolish to ignore the warning signs. Vincent arrived within 15 minutes, his car pulling up directly in front of the cafe. He got out, his expression hard as he spotted Derek. "Get in the car," Vincent told Claire. "I will walk you to your apartment." "I cannot keep running to you every time I feel scared," Claire protested, even as relief flooded through her. "You are not running. You are being smart," Vincent said. He raised his voice slightly, ensuring Derek could hear. "And you are not alone." Derek melted into the shadows, but his presence lingered like a bad smell. Vincent drove Claire to her apartment building, a modest walk-up in a neighborhood that had seen better days. She felt self-conscious as he parked, knowing he probably lived in a penthouse somewhere. "Would you like to come up for coffee?" Claire asked, surprising herself. "I know it seems silly, offering you coffee after you spend every morning at my cafe, but I make a mean cup at home too." Vincent smiled. "I would love that." A different world. Claire's apartment was small but carefully decorated. She had painted the walls herself in warm colors and filled the space with plants and artwork. Books overflowed from shelves. And her tiny kitchen showed signs of someone who truly loved cooking. Vincent looked around with genuine interest. "This feels like you. Warm and creative." "It's not much," Claire said, suddenly aware of the contrast between her life and his. "It's honest," Vincent countered. "No pretense or performance. Just a real person living a real life." They sat on her second-hand couch, drinking coffee and talking until midnight. Vincent told her about his childhood, about losing his mother to cancer when he was 15, about his father's emotional distance and impossible standards. Claire shared her own story, growing up with a single grandmother after her parents died in a car accident, working multiple jobs to save money for the cafe. "We are both orphans in our own way," Vincent observed quietly, "both trying to build something meaningful from what we were given." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever understood that aspect of her life so completely. "Do you ever feel like you are pretending? Like everyone else knows some secret about belonging that you missed?" "Every single day," Vincent admitted, "especially in my world where everyone is performing a role. Sometimes I forget who I actually am underneath all the expectations." "Who are you?" Claire asked softly. Vincent met her eyes, and the intensity there made her breath catch. "I am still figuring that out. But when I am with you, I feel closer to the answer." Society's judgment, the shift in their relationship was subtle but unmistakable. Vincent started staying longer at the cafe, helping Claire close up. They had dinner together several times a week, sometimes at nice restaurants, sometimes with takeout in her apartment. Claire felt herself falling, even as her rational mind screamed warnings. Her best friend Rachel noticed immediately. They met for lunch at a diner near Claire's cafe, and Rachel wasted no time confronting her. "You are glowing," Rachel said, stirring her iced tea. "And I know that glow. It's the 'I am falling for someone' glow." Claire tried to deny it, but the words stuck in her throat. "It's complicated, 'cause he is Vincent Harrington, and you are you." Rachel asked bluntly. "Claire, I love you, but you need to be realistic. Men like him do not end up with women like us. They have fun for a while, then they go back to their own kind." "Vincent is not like that," Claire protested, but doubt crept in. Was she being naive? Was this just a temporary diversion for him? The doubt grew when Vincent invited her to a business dinner with some of his associates. Claire dressed carefully in the nicest outfit she owned, a simple black dress that had cost her a week's profits. She felt underdressed the moment they arrived at the exclusive restaurant. Vincent's colleagues were polite, but distant. Their wives wore designer clothes and discussed charity galas and vacation homes. Claire tried to contribute to conversations, but she had nothing in common with these people. She felt their judgment like a physical weight. The confrontation one woman, Diane Ashworth, was particularly cutting. "Claire, Vincent mentioned you own a coffee shop. How quaint. My daughter tried something similar after college, but she grew out of it. Morning bloom is not a phase, Claire said evenly. It is my career, of course, Diane said, her smile sharp. Vincent has always had a soft spot for charity projects. The words hit Claire like a slap. She excused herself to the restroom, fighting tears. When she emerged, she found Vincent waiting in the hallway, his expression concerned. What did Diane say to you? He demanded. Nothing that was not true, Claire replied. I do not belong in your world, Vincent. We have been pretending otherwise, but tonight made it clear. Those people do not define my world, Vincent said fiercely. You do. These past weeks with you have been the most real, the most honest, the most genuinely happy I have been in years. But I will always be the charity project to them, Claire whispered. The cafe owner who got lucky, and eventually, you will see me that way too. Never. Vincent caught her hands. Claire, I am falling in love with you. Not with some idea of who you should be, but with exactly who you are. Claire's heart soared and broke simultaneously. I am falling for you too. That is what makes this so hard, because I know how this ends. You will realize I cannot fit into your life, or I will lose myself trying to become someone I am not. A declaration of intent. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady and sure. Then we build a new life, one that belongs to both of us. I do not want the life I had before you. I want something real, something meaningful. I want you. Your father will never accept me, Claire said. My father's approval is not required for my happiness, Vincent replied. I spent 35 years trying to earn it. I am done living for other people's expectations. He pulled her close, and Claire let herself lean into him, drawing strength from his certainty. What if I disappoint you? What if I am not enough? What if you are everything? Vincent countered. He tilted her chin up, his green eyes intense. I am not asking you to change or pretend to be someone else. I am asking you to let me stand beside you, to build something together. Will you give us that chance? Claire thought about all the reasons this was impossible. The difference in their backgrounds, the judgment they would face, the complications that would arise. But she also thought about how she felt when she was with him. Safe, seen, valued for exactly who she was. She whispered. Yes, I want that chance. Vincent kissed her then, soft and reverent, and Claire felt the world shift around them. This was not a fairy tale. There would be challenges ahead, judgments to face, obstacles to overcome. But for the first time in her life, she was not facing them alone. They left the restaurant together, leaving behind the stuffy business people and their narrow definitions of belonging. In the car, Vincent reached for her hand. There is something else I need to tell you, he said. I have been looking into Derek's harassment. He violated the restraining order twice last week. I have hired security for your cafe and your apartment building. Vincent, I cannot afford that, Claire protested. You are not paying for it. I am, Vincent said firmly. And before you argue about independence, this is not about rescuing you. This is about protecting someone I love. Let me do this. Claire wanted to argue, to insist she could handle everything herself. But the truth was, she was exhausted from constantly looking over her shoulder. Thank you, she said quietly. We protect each other, Vincent said simply. That is what love means. As they drove through the city streets, Claire looked out at the lights and felt something shift inside her. She had spent so long trying to prove she could handle everything alone. Maybe true strength was not about refusing help, but about knowing when to accept it. Maybe love was not about being rescued or being perfect. Maybe it was about two imperfect people choosing to face the world together. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The following month brought unexpected changes. Vincent started spending more time at Morning Bloom, not just as a customer, but as a partner. He helped Claire develop a business plan for expansion, introduced her to suppliers who could reduce her costs, and connected her with investors interested in supporting small businesses. He did it all without taking over, respecting her vision while offering his expertise. You are thinking too small, Vincent said one evening as they reviewed her financials. You could have 3 locations within 2 years if you wanted. I never thought that big, Claire admitted. I was just focused on surviving. Start thinking about thriving instead, Vincent encouraged. You have something special here. Let the world see it. Claire found herself daring to dream bigger. With Vincent's support, not financial but emotional and strategic, she began planning a second location. The process terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. Their relationship deepened as well. Vincent stayed over at her apartment most nights, content to sleep in her small bed and drink coffee from her mismatched mugs. He seemed lighter somehow, as if being with her had lifted a weight he had carried for years. My father wants to meet you, Vincent mentioned one morning. Claire nearly dropped her coffee cup. What did you tell him about me? The truth. That I am in love with a remarkable woman who owns a cafe and makes me happier than I have ever been, Vincent said. He was not pleased. Vincent, maybe this is moving too fast, Claire said nervously. Meeting your father? The expansion plans. What if I am not ready? Vincent set down his own cup and took her hands. We move at whatever pace feels right to you. But Claire, I need you to understand something. I am not going anywhere. This is not a phase or a rebellion. You are my future. The unwelcome return Derek chose that moment to make his move. He showed up at Morning Bloom during the lunch rush, pushing past customers to reach the counter. The security guard Vincent had hired moved to intercept him, but Derek was shouting before he could be removed. You think you're better than me now? Derek yelled at Claire. With your rich boyfriend buying you everything. You were nothing before me, Claire. Nothing. Customers stared, phones appearing to record the scene. Claire felt humiliation wash over her, but beneath it was anger. She had worked too hard, come too far, to let Derek reduce her to this. I was never nothing, Claire said clearly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I built this cafe with my own hands, my own money, my own dreams. You tried to make me small because my success threatened you. But I am done letting you have any power over my life. You cannot even succeed without someone else's help, Derek sneered, gesturing at the security guard. Running to your billionaire boyfriend every time things get hard? Accepting help is not weakness, Claire replied. Refusing to let go of someone who clearly wants nothing to do with you, that is weakness. Get out of my cafe, Derek, and get out of my life. The security guard escorted Derek out, and Claire turned to her customers. I apologize for the disruption. Next round of coffee is on the house. The customers broke into spontaneous applause. Several came up to offer support, sharing their own stories of leaving toxic relationships. Claire felt tears threaten but kept them at bay. She had handled this herself, stood up for herself. It felt like a turning point. Meeting the father, Vincent heard about the incident within an hour. He showed up at the cafe, his expression tight with worry and anger. I should have been here, he said. I handled it, Claire replied, and felt pride in those words. I did not need you to save me, though I appreciate knowing you would have. Vincent pulled her into his arms, and she felt him trembling slightly. You are the strongest person I know. I learned from the best, Claire said, pulling back to meet his eyes. You showed me that accepting help does not mean losing yourself. Now, about meeting your father? Vincent looked surprised. Are you sure? No, Claire admitted, but I am going to do it anyway. Because you are worth it. We are worth it. The dinner was arranged for the following week at Vincent's father's estate. Claire dressed carefully, choosing a simple but elegant dress that felt authentic to who she was. She refused to pretend to be someone else, even for Vincent's father. Thomas Harrington was everything Claire expected. Tall, distinguished, with the same green eyes as his son, but none of the warmth. He greeted her politely, but distantly, and throughout dinner. He asked questions, clearly designed to highlight the differences between her world and theirs. Your family is from Ohio, Thomas asked. Any connection to the Ohio Harringtons? My grandmother was a factory worker, Claire replied evenly. No connections to anyone notable. In your cafe, how long do you anticipate it remaining profitable in such a competitive market? As long as I work hard and adapt to changing needs, Claire said. The same way any business survives. Vincent's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. But Thomas was not finished. Vincent, Thomas said, addressing his son directly, You have responsibilities to this family, to the business. I cannot support a relationship that will distract you from those responsibilities or damage our reputation. Father, Vincent said quietly, with respect, I do not need your support. I would like it, but I do not require it. Thomas's expression hardened. If you pursue this relationship, there will be consequences. The board will question your judgment. Investors may lose confidence. Then I will address those concerns as they arise, Vincent said. But I will not give up the woman I love because of hypothetical business problems. The public declaration, the breaking point, came 2 weeks later at a charity gala Vincent was obligated to attend. He had asked Claire to accompany him, and despite her reservations, she agreed. She wore a borrowed designer gown, courtesy of Vincent's stylist, and tried to ignore her nerves. The event was held at the Harrington Hotel's flagship location, a glittering ballroom filled with New York's elite. Claire recognized several faces from magazines and news programs. She felt intensely out of place, but Vincent kept her close, introducing her to everyone as the woman I love. Halfway through the evening, Derek appeared. Claire had no idea how he had gotten past security, but suddenly he was there, grabbing her arm and pulling her away from Vincent. "Let go of my wife," Vincent said, his voice low and dangerous. The room fell silent. Claire realized what Vincent had said, and her heart stopped. Derek released her immediately, confusion crossing his face. "Your wife?" Derek repeated. Vincent said clearly, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. He turned to Claire, dropping to one knee. From his pocket, he pulled a small velvet box. "I had a whole plan for this. Dinner at your favorite restaurant, something private and intimate. But I realize I do not want to wait another moment." "Vincent," Claire whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Claire Bennett, you are the strongest, kindest, most genuine person I have ever known," Vincent said, his green eyes locked on hers. "You make me want to be better. Make me believe that love can be real and honest and transformative. Will you marry me?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Claire was aware of hundreds of people watching, of cameras recording, of Vincent's father standing rigid near the bar. But all of that faded away until there was only Vincent looking at her with hope and love and absolute certainty. "Yes," Claire said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I will marry you." Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that the crowd erupted into applause for. Even Derek had disappeared, rendered insignificant by Vincent's public declaration. A new beginning. Thomas Harrington approached them after the congratulations had died down. His expression was difficult to read. "That was quite a spectacle," Thomas said. "It was honest," Vincent replied, his arm around Claire, "which is more than most relationships in this room can claim." Thomas studied Claire for a long moment. "You make my son happy? I can see that. Is not what I would have chosen, but perhaps that is the point." "Mr. Harrington," Claire said quietly, "I do not want to take Vincent away from his family or his responsibilities. I want to support him in being the person he wants to be." "And who is that?" Thomas asked. "Someone who builds meaningful things," Vincent answered. "Someone who values people over profit. Someone who is not afraid to love openly and honestly." Thomas nodded slowly. "I suppose there are worse things." He extended his hand to Claire. "Welcome to the family, such as it is." It was not a warm welcome, but it was a beginning. Claire shook his hand, recognizing an olive branch when she saw one. The months that followed were not without challenges. Vincent's business associates had mixed reactions to their engagement. Some saw Claire as an asset, bringing authenticity to the Harrington name. Others remained skeptical. But Vincent faced each obstacle with Claire by his side, never wavering in his commitment. Claire opened her second cafe location with Vincent's strategic help, but her own financing, proving she could expand on her own merit. The press covered their story, some painting it as a fairy tale, others as a cautionary tale. Claire learned to ignore the noise and focus on what was real. The wedding they married 6 months later, in a small ceremony at Morning Bloom, surrounded by Claire's regular customers, Vincent's closest friends, and eventually Thomas Harrington. The guest list included artists and business people, cafe workers, and hotel executives, people from every part of their lives. We are proof that love does not fit into neat categories, Vincent said in his vows. You taught me that strength is not about standing alone, but about knowing when to stand together. You showed me that success is not measured in dollars, but in meaning and connection and joy. You gave me permission to dream bigger, Claire replied, tears streaming down her face. Not because you fixed my life, but because you believed in me so completely that I started believing in myself. You are my partner, my best friend, my home. As they kissed, sealing their vows, Claire looked around at the unlikely collection of people celebrating with them. This was not a fairy tale ending. It was a real beginning, messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. Vincent had not rescued her. She had not saved him. Instead, they had chosen each other, built something new together, proven that love could bridge any divide when it was rooted in respect, honesty, and genuine partnership. Their story would inspire others facing similar obstacles. But more importantly, it would remind them both that the best love stories are not about perfection. They are about two people who choose each other every day, who grow together rather than apart, who build a life that honors both their individual dreams and their shared future. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by love and possibility, Claire whispered in Vincent's ear, "Thank you for seeing me." "Thank you for letting me," Vincent replied. And in that moment, everything else fell away. The judgments, the obstacles, the differences in their backgrounds. All that mattered was the choice they had made and would continue making every day. The choice to love courageously, to stand together, to create something beautiful from the unexpected collision of their two worlds.